Hi, welcome. My name is Dale McCluskey. On this video, I want to once again respond to the remote collar bans that are happening worldwide. Right now, there's a impending ban about to happen in the UK, within England, which again, I talk about this issue in terms of remote collars. And again, I'm holding in my hands here a remote collar. Now, here's the thing. I don't pivot off of remote collars. Remote collars are a device that can be used in training, but here's the thing, okay? As it aligns with a methodology, okay, that is going to reconcile not just the dog owner's role in the relationship, but by way of a intentional interaction-based method, going to align the role of influence. So again, I talk about defining physical force. Okay, so again, when you talk about bringing a dog under a level of of influence, by way again of how you're interacting, there's so much confusion regarding what does that really mean. Again, this is where you get into this issue as to what's popular. Okay, again, we talk about this idea that training is a learning-based exercise, and understand that the majority of trainers out there, those who identify as both balanced and force-free, which comprise like over 99% of all trainers, their idea as to what training is, once a dog owner is experiencing a ongoing relationship problem with their dog. Understand, this is where all the confusion is coming from, because again, I talk about, I line the stuff up, help dog owners understand, a process with how you're jumping into a relationship problem. This is where the problems start, okay? This is where it starts at the beginning. The confusion starts at the beginning as to, what is the role of influence. So again, just would encourage people to consider, okay, that, those who identify as balanced dog trainers, and again, talk about balanced dog trainers being in a catch-22 situation, okay, because what's happening here is that they come into agreement, okay, with approaching training as a learning-based exercise. They come into agreement with motivating a dog to respond at the very beginning of a relationship problem without considering, why that would be a problem by way of superficial responses, okay? And again, talk about the assumptions being made that way in terms of, elevating responses up without considering, okay, whether you can even trust those responses at the beginning, based again on how the dog owner, okay, is interacting with or not interacting with, okay, a dog to truly change perception of dogs the right way, okay? So again, all these themes I talk about, again, I really would, encourage you to consider the parenting example, because once you start to think about, the parenting example, this will all start to make sense, okay? Even why these devices are being banned and balanced dog trainers can't stop it, okay? Based again on the type of parenting style that they've come into agreement with. And again, so if you look at the parenting styles, the 4 styles of parenting, permissive, authoritative, authoritarian, indifferent, then you'll start to make these connections. So again, this system of training, by way of a intentional interaction-based method, represents the authoritative parenting style, not authoritarian. So again, talk about authoritarian, that's like kind of over the top. Again, coming from confusion over the role of, say, the role of the parent, and versus permissive, okay? So when you look at everything happening in the dog training world, if you look at the permissive dynamic, you're gonna make the connections here, okay, in terms of what's happening. So again, what's happening in terms of, of this, these bans is that these devices, okay, which manifest influence, okay, it brings the dog under a level of influence, is problematic based on the type of parenting style, okay, that is being promoted, okay? So I talk about making sense to a dog. So again, when you talk about this system of training, which is a intentional interaction-based approach. It's all about reconciling the role of the owner, the role of influence. Therefore, when these devices are used, okay, and as a secondary tool, not a primary tool, as a secondary tool, it's going to make sense to the dog. In fact, when you're invested the right way, then in a system of training, in a intentional method that's going to align properly, then these tools typically can just be used on vibration and in very specific situations, okay? Versus, again, talk about shocking dogs. This is where, again, this whole issue, because again, when you're invested in or you're aligned with a superficial idea of things, okay, then guess what? Influence isn't going to line up, okay? Dogs are going to push through or try to push through. They're going to fight against it, because what they're basically saying is, well, this isn't making sense. The owner isn't really changing, okay? And this is the social connection part of this, okay? This is where, again, in terms of making sense to a dog, this is where, again, by way of how you're interacting the right way and influence being part of the equation the right way, just like the theme of a parent who's interacting with, okay, a child that's already become selfish. And understand, that's what changes things too, is that, once you start to identify, okay, what is a process based on where the current status of the relationship, well, once a child has already become selfish, it changes everything, okay? It's really important that you're aligning yourself with the right parenting style. And so if you look at, say, the permissive parenting style, you start to see the consequences of that. And so again, moving into what's agreed upon by way of the experts, the right parenting style, the authoritative parenting style, okay, you'll start to see that shift, okay? But you also start to see certain things that are similar in terms of being able to reconcile properly the reactions of dogs. Understand, this is another problem based on the confusion coming from a superficial idea of things. So when people see certain reactions, they're unable to reconcile those reactions because everything's based on appearances, okay? There's a failure to understand the depth as to what's happening, because this idea that's very popular is based on motivating dogs in such a way that basically you're following a path of bribery. Okay, understand, you're bribing dogs, and then people try to get a take on that. Okay, what is bribery? Well, bribery becomes bribery when you fail to consider the role of the owner, the role of influence, and you're superficially motivating dogs to respond at the very beginning of a relationship problem in such a way that you're just assuming that those responses can be trusted. So yeah, you can have a great sit down, come and stay. Meanwhile, nothing's actually changing. Okay, this is why it's very, very common for people to invest time, money, energy into this idea of things that trains a learning-based exercise, only to discover, hold on here a second, I'm still dealing with this whole kind of laundry list of behavioral problems that have not gone away. Understand, that is so common. And so there's the blame shifting begins. Okay, understand, blame shifting begins, and blame shifting has actually become normalized, because when you really consider that, that both these groups of trainers, Balance and Force Free, have come into agreement with this idea, and so blame shifting is just going to be a natural, result of that at a high level in some cases. It seems like it's normal for something to be wrong with the dog, versus no, there's actually, what's wrong is the idea itself, its application. So again, all to say that when you get back to this whole thing about, remote collar bans, why are they happening? Well, they're happening as a result of a failure to understand dogs as social animals, based on how they connect with us that way. What does that connection represent by way of, how we're perceived, our role, and the role of influence at the beginning in terms of change perception of dogs the right way. So again, my encouragement, if you have questions, if you're looking around what's going on in the dog training world, there's so much confusion, there's so much divisiveness, there's so much infighting. Well, it all points towards what I'm saying. There's a reason for that, because again, when you're taking a hold of this idea and you're failing to, ask the questions that need to be asked at the very beginning, this is the result. So the dog training world is in a tremendous, tremendous mess. It's not going to get better. Okay, that's the other thing I want people to understand. I said this years ago, because you have to start to ask these questions. And so the Force Free movement has the high ground. These device bans are happening. Balanced dog trainers can't stop it. and that's why. So again, I'll put out the, I would really encourage you to check out my website. Lots of great information. I talk about not just the problem, but the solution by way of a intentional interaction-based approach. Thanks for watching.